Welcome everyone to episode 2 of the Carpenter Critique. If this is your first time listening, welcome. And if this is your second time listening, as this is the second episode, welcome back. I am very excited. Well, firstly, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has shown support to me the last couple of days. It's been honestly so awesome to launch something and to start building something and to have friends and family be supporting me throughout the process. That is just, I can't thank you enough. It's been really great. We are up to 4 subscribers. Woo, woo, woo. I'm actually so excited. That means 4 people went in and clicked subscribe. I do think one of them is my other YouTube account, but 3 strong, solid subscribers that do get my notifications every time I post to YouTube or wherever. So thank you to you, strong 3. We are in this together. We are building something together. Yeah, I'm very excited. It's literally like building from the ground up. So yes, very excited. And I just want to say thank you. I'm very grateful for all the love and support. And thank you for sharing my posts. Oh my gosh, it means a lot. I will say I have had some people, my friend Alice and me, if you're watching, love you, girl. She just had a baby. Anyway, but she posted on her story and one of her friends lit up and was like, so he critiques carpentry? And I was like, you know what? It's not off the table. It's early days. Like, hey, anything can happen. So we are in this, and now in episode 2, where we will be going over Bridgerton. Ooh, I know we got a lot of Bridgerton fans. I'm especially excited to go over this because I went through the last 4 seasons of Bridgerton. I watched all of it in preparation for this, and it was, a delight. I enjoyed it immensely. It was amazing. I have been thinking about kind of the way when it first came out. I was in college, and I think it was like my junior year or something. It was pre-COVID, and it came out in December because it was like, I know it was snowing, and I was talking to my friends about it, and I was really hooked. I had been hooked from day one. And then when the second season came out, it's funny when you stay with shows. I can remember exactly where I was every time each season came out. The second season came out, and I had graduated college, and I was in a gap year, and I was house sitting because I watched all 8 episodes in one night. Jonathan Bailey season, it came out, and I was house sitting, and I watched all 8 episodes on that TV, and yeah, it was like boom, done. The third season came out, and I was in grad school, and now the 4th season came out, and I am starting a podcast. So it's kind of been, I think it's been 7 years? 6 years. It's been 6 years total. And so next season, season 5, I'm sure I'll be in a completely different place in life. And all of those times I was living in different places. So it was, the first season came out, I was living in Missouri. Second season came out, I was living in Colorado Springs. Third season, I was living in LA. And 4th season, I'm in Denver. So it's kind of crazy, the way you change as well as the shows change that you watch. Just another reason why I love the Carpenter Critique. We can evaluate where we've been and where we're going and what shows are important to us in different times in our journey. This is all why I chose to make a podcast like this, just to see how you can change. And honestly, it's really cool to see how the show has changed too in the last couple of years. I think it's grown a lot. And not to just dive right in, but why not just dive right in? Talking about Bridgerton, I think the show has definitely gone through ups and downs. Oh my gosh. I do think the best of Bridgerton is still Queen Charlotte. That has to be, the chemistry is off the charts, the writing. I will stand with you between the heavens and the earth. Do you love me? Ugh, so good. But also I was looking at, if I had to rank the seasons, probably Queen Charlotte is number 1, for sure. But, maybe controversial take, I'd probably put this recent season next, or pretty close to Queen Charlotte. I think if each season has a main obstacle, season 1 is season 1 is the fake dating trope or whatever with Daphne and Simon. It's really effective, and I think it's a really good hook. And Regé Jean Page and, come on Luke, Phoebe Dynevor, both, they were amazing. Phoebe Dynevor is the diamond. She ate that up. And Daphne, I think, could very easily be an unlikable character with the wrong actress, and Phoebe ate that. She did so well. But I think as well as Season 1 was such a good hook to audiences and to bring them in. I think the show has gotten better. Not with every season. I will say season 3, I was kind of like, but season 2, I really, really like. I think season 2 is probably the most rewatchable. The side characters are, or like the side plots are at their best, I would say, in season 2. Even in season 4, like, I think the main story of season 4 is probably the most compelling, but season 2 has, with Jonathan Bailey and Simone Ashley, there's enemies to lovers is such a good trope. That's probably my favorite. But also they have such good chemistry, and I don't think they could have picked a more beautiful actress than Simone Ashley. Well, I would just be watching her and I'm like, man, like her bone structure is insane. It's insane. And then Jonathan Bailey, of course, is like, who I know straight men who would like absolutely just die to marry Jonathan Bailey. So love them all. Love Jonathan Bailey. I think I would rank it Queen Charlotte number 1, Bridgerton season 4 with Sophie and Benedict as second place. I'd probably put season 2 and then season 1. So season 2 with Jonathan Bailey and Simone Ashley. Season 1 with Daphne and Simon is his name, or Regé-Jean Page and Phoebe Dynevor. And then season 3 last with Nicola Coughlan and Luke Newton. But I love Nicola Coughlan and I love Luke Newton. Like, it was kind of disappointing to see like the whistle down reveal was just, I don't know, probably could have been done better. When I rewatched it, I didn't think it was as bad, but I remember when I watched it for the first time, I was like, the storyline isn't giving. A lot of the side plots, like the only really effective side plot in season 3 was Cressida's side plot. Okay, this is a little bit messy, but the only really effective season 3 side plot that I was kind of moved by was I thought Cressida and Eloise's friendship was really, really well done. And then there's a little bit of payoff in season 4, but I think I'm going to make this episode a lot more about season 4. Sorry, that was a lot of unfiltered thoughts about Bridgerton. But let's dive into season 4 specifically and why I think it's really, really good. I think Bridgerton I think they felt this in season 3, but they don't know where to go with all the like elegance and top society. And they've kind of already done a couple love stories within like the same social class and a lot of the similar hurdles they were facing. So in season 3, it was like there wasn't that much hurdle. It's just like friends becoming lovers and then they had to out Whistledown somehow. And I think they were just kind of like, okay, now what do we do? And a great step is involving the servants. The servants have been there, and we see the servants throughout the show. I also think in Just Regency England, because obviously this isn't real, but in Just Regency England, we get to see all these different characters develop, but we also aren't people living in Regency England. So a lot of this is just up to our imagination. And I think Bridgerton does a good job of expanding its own world, especially in season 4, because they notice that they've already done a lot of hurdles within the same social class. I think the very obvious next step would be to involve the next one down, which would be the servants. They're always there. We've already cared for a few of them. Like, we really care about the Bridgerton, and I forget her name. Great, Luke. Good point. But the Bridgerton main maid, Mrs. Shoot, I know her face. I'm horrible with names. But I think Sophie Beck is an amazing heroine. And it was really great to have someone genuine to like root for throughout the whole thing. She's not really problematic either. A lot of the past heroes and heroines, there's like some flaw and some tragic flaw. And it's not that she's perfect, but she does see herself as inferior. And I think a lot of the Bridgerton upper class Regency would see her as inferior because she's a maid and because she's illegitimate. And the beauty in season 4 is that she's getting over that sense of inferiority, which I think a lot of us could relate to. At least when I was watching it, I was like, you do really have to open yourself up to love. And you have to open yourself up to being loved, even if you think it's by someone better than you. I don't know. I thought that was a really cool storyline that they opened up and were able to see. And then Benedict was the perfect hero to her, if that makes sense. I think Antony would not have been like, if it was like Antony and Sophie, they would not fall in love. Like, Antony needed someone feisty, someone to push back against him. And Benedict kind of needs someone to ground him, and Sophie needs someone to lift her out of where she is. I hate saying that because it's like upper class and lower class, but it's not like that in a class sense. Benedict just needs someone to be able to think about like honestly being empathetic towards other people. Remember when I was watching in season 1, you kind of see Benedict gain empathy for women through Eloise a little bit. And then when he meets Sophie, he's like, I kind of realized this is a bubble. I'm living in a bubble. Maids have a completely different life, and people who aren't born into the highest class have a completely different life. And it took Sophie for him to see that. And it really took him, like one of my favorite scenes in season 4 is when Benedict comes out as like bisexual to Sophie, and he's just completely unashamed, but also he's owning it, and it's very gentle. It's not like, I'm gay, deal with it. It's like, I'm bisexual. Like, I've loved people of many genders before, and like that's part of who I am, and I refuse to be ashamed about it. Ugh, I loved that scene. And then Sophie reacts so perfectly. She's like, love is supposed to be celebrated. Absolutely! Yes, Sophie! Yes! And then she tells him that she's illegitimate, and it's another one of those things where Benedict is like, ugh. He has this realization, like when men realize empathy, it's like, oh, right. Not everyone is going through the same things that I am. Benedict realizes, I've literally put Sophie in the same position that her mother was with her father. And she's afraid of that. And she's afraid of accepting love because she didn't feel like her father loved her mother, but they did. And her father loved her in the end. So good. Spoiler. If you haven't seen any of the Bridgertons, or like any of Bridgerton show, I highly recommend it. Maybe don't watch it with like your family. I was just talking about it with some people, and I was like, it's so wholesome, it's so love, like I love it. And then I was like, oh right, the graphic sex scenes, right. And though I think that was the initial hook with Bridgerton when people first started watching it in season 1, it was like not only this reserved culture matched with these graphic sex scenes, but it's kind of the difference of the two that are pulling you in, and I think that's what hooked a lot of viewers in the first place. And then season 2 got a little less steamy. Season 3 kind of upped the steam level, and then season 4 I was like, they're doing it right again. Yes. But also Bridgerton has been able to expand from that, which is really cool. They're not just relying on that same hook of like, is steamy sex with this restrained romance. It's like we care about these characters now. There's so many Eloise apologists on TikTok. There's so many Bridgerton apologists. They've done a really good job of shaping the characters and honestly giving the actors platforms to be influential in the industry, but also have their character blossom. So Hannah Dodd just came in as Francesca in season 3. And they've already given her so much material to work with. And then in season 4, they give her this whole, spoiler alert, grief storyline when her husband dies. And she kills it. I wonder if Bridgerton might be nominated for an Emmy. And I wonder if she'll be nominated as well, because she killed it. But I think Bridgerton's done well of expanding outside of just steamy sex and the like romance of it all. I think they're doing really good with their romance and the steamy sex. But also they've mastered how to grow their characters and how to give someone to root for. If anything, I think Bridgerton maybe needs work in the villain category, because we really don't have, other than the evil stepmother this season, there wasn't really a villain or anyone standing in their way. And then in the end, the queen's just like, yeah, they can get married, you know? So maybe in the next season, we need a little bit more of someone. We had Cressida, and now she's not a villain. Now she was developed really well in season 3 to be a sort of sympathetic character. And so I wonder if they're going to expand into making more villains in the Bridgerton universe, or if they're just going to maybe lean more into romance. I don't know if it's confirmed yet, but I think Eloise is season 5. And then Francesca's gay love story being season 6. Yes! Lesbians! Let's go! Lesbians! Ew. Anyway, I think it's also interesting that we're halfway through. If Bridgerton is going to be 8 seasons, we're halfway through the siblings. We've got Hyacinth, Gregory, Eloise, and Francesca's main love stories coming to the forefront of the story. I'm really interested. They also developed Violet's love story, like Mother Bridgerton, in a really cool way where she was like, I don't know if I think I just want to have sex and like with my kids. I'm not really looking to get married again. I was like, okay, slay. I am really sad that Lady Danbury is leaving the show. I don't know if she's leaving forever, especially because I know she's involved in some of the later books. I've not read the books. Sorry. Maybe I'll read them one day. I've heard that the best one is Penelope and Colin's season, or Penelope and Colin's story, which was funny because I think that might be regarded as the worst season of television for the Bridgerton universe, but it's regarded as the best book. After all the review, I looked through so many reviews. So I would be interested to read the book. Maybe they expand it in a different way. But for those who have watched and stayed loyal to all the Bridgerton universe, from season 1, with the man that ends up with Marina Thompson, this is a little bit of a spoiler, Sir Philip is supposed to be the love interest for Eloise's season. I don't know if they're going to keep it that way. They probably will, but I'm excited to see what they do. So season 5 is going to be good. However, staying with season 4, there is a lot to say about the maids. I think it was just a lot more relatable to me, like the working class. And I think if putting yourself in their shoes, if you were in Regency England, I think I wouldn't be someone in high society. I might get bored and I would maybe go off to university or something. Like I wouldn't be, if I was a man, I'd be like going off to university or going off to do something else rather than just like stick around to get married. But I don't know. It's interesting to think about. And it's cool that Bridgerton has opened this world for us to be with these characters, but also for us to be imagining where you'd be in Regency England. I don't know. And it gives everyone a space. It's not just white people. It's now so inclusive, which is awesome. I don't know. I'm a big Bridgerton fan, and I'm really, really glad to do this episode. Without further ado, let's head into the psychology article for the week. Oh my gosh, I was recording and the camera was flipped in a different way, so I was not centered. So that's great. Lost all that footage. But we're back now, and I pulled up my psychology article for the week. So this one, it's technically a sociology thesis. It's a qualitative sociology thesis by Emma Gerden. So the article for the week is a thesis by Emma Gerden called Social Class and Romantic Relationships, Understanding Cross-Class Romantic Relationships of University Students and Recent Graduates. Something interesting about this study, different from last week, is that this is a qualitative study. So this is done with previous research, and she conducted an experiment with interviews rather than like a survey with gathering data. She did all of this speaking, and it's a lot of like word data as opposed to numbers data, if that makes sense. This is also mainly a sociology study as opposed to a psychology study. But we're mainly relating this to Bridgerton season 4 and the class differences between Benedict and Sophie, with Benedict being a gentleman and Sophie being a maid. This is comparing cross-class relationships in modern day with university students, which I thought brought a lot of interesting dimension, especially because it's American, it's not British. So a lot of these students are most of these students are from UNC, including Emma Gerden herself, the author. Also, shout out Emma Gerden. This thesis is awesome. If you have not read it, I can leave the link in my description. It is awesome. Here were some of the core research questions that she had when first starting the study. So how do university students and recent graduates in cross-class romantic relationships define and perceive social class? How do they recognize class differences in their own relationships? And how do they experience tension or benefits related to these differences? Interesting, shall we say? Shall we read a little bit further? So like I said, this is a qualitative study. So she's comparing her interview study to a bunch of different studies that have been done about cross-cultural relationships or cross-class relationships before her. So her method was she got 16 different students, all ages 18 to 28, that were in a relationship in which they're not the same social or economic class as their partner. They were all in heterosexual and same-sex relationships, and there are some interracial couples as well, just to give you a lay of the land. So they had each person had an interview lasting 40 to 80 minutes, and this was semi-structured as relationship questions. So how are you alike to your partner? How are you different? How do you differ on spending, politics, gift giving? And then tell me about meeting your partner's parents. I commend everyone who joined a research study. I think in the name of psychology, we can do good and gain more knowledge about the human race and the human brain. Or in the name of sociology, sociologists rise up, sociologists rise up. But some interesting findings was that specifically in America, upper-class Americans don't really call themselves upper class, which, I mean, of course, this is Regency England, but that is a big difference from this study to Bridgerton. In Bridgerton, they're flaunting their wealth. They're throwing balls every other evening. They're dressed in new dresses all the time for every different event. You know, there was that one storyline where she was like, we can't possibly wear the same dresses. And it's like, girl, no one remembers that ugly grain, you know? But in America, there is like an extreme reluctance to admit that you're upper class. A lot of people in the study said that they were upper middle, and I think no participant admitted to being upper class, despite their parents' really good jobs, or if they had like an inheritance or anything, everyone said upper middle. There was like almost a social need to minimize the privilege that you had, which is interesting because you don't want to be seen as poor either. But also, it seems like the poor, not poor, but the lower class individuals didn't show much shame. They came from nothing and then they worked their way up. So maybe they were proud of where they've come from, or proud of how hard they've worked to get out of where they've come from. Whereas the upper class individuals were a lot more minimizing where they came from in order to maybe appear more normal. But yeah, that's an interesting social concept that, I don't know, we maybe don't talk about as much. But class differences really became visible, she found, when you were visiting your partner's house, which I think of Sophie becoming a maid in the Bridgerton house. What? But a lot of times the findings suggest that the poorer, or like the partner that was in lower class or from lower class, tended to feel exposed, like they're not a part of this world. When they met the upper class parents, they felt that they were, out of place, and they didn't know how to act or maybe how to impress because they're not used to this. Whereas the upper class partner going to the lower class parents' house, it was not shocked by how the lower class lived, but they were a little bit more vague in their descriptions. And a lot of times they felt uncomfortable and would change the subject because they know that their house was probably better off economic wise or social wise. But the lower class partners described to feel shock or intimidated, embarrassed, and then someone said that they felt redneck. But either way, the asymmetry from this is really powerful. Lower class partners felt exposed, and the upper class partners felt very observational. Very, very interesting finding from the study. Another thing was that there is an anxiety versus carefree mindset when it comes to money. My gosh, does this not happen in Bridgerton? Hello? In season 4 especially, I think there's so many moments, as I was talking about earlier, where Sophie is anxious about how her outcome will be. A lot of times it's a little bit more social because she faces social ruin as a maid with a gentleman. But you can tell she's worried about money, and she's worrying about the economics of where she's going to end up. They're trying to figure out if she has a dowry. Like, she is thinking about money a lot more than Benedict is. Benedict has always had money. He's not thinking about if he needs another paycheck because he knows that there's lots of money coming from where his brother and his mother and their family is just born into wealth. And so when each partner approaches money, and when they approach planning for things, and when they approach trying to figure out how to pay, or at least money seems to be a lot more a part of the conversation for the lower class partner than it does for the upper class partner, which is also very interesting because you'll notice in a lot of couples, money is a problem. One of the top things that couples fight about is money. And it might be important to recognize where you come from before you talk about money with your partner, or recognizing where your partner comes from too. For a lot of the lower class people, there was an intense feeling around budget. They felt a lot of guilt spending. This says above $30. I'd feel the same. I'd honestly, if it's above $30, I'm like, hey, what are we doing right now? But they would prefer cooking over takeout, and they fear financial disaster because they've seen it before, versus the upper class partners are a lot more spontaneous. They normalize trying new restaurants and takeout. And even in when Benedict is thinking about the balls that they're going to throw, or he wants to be a part of society, he's not really thinking about the money about it. He's just thinking about how good everything looks. And Sophie's thinking about, how do we plan? How do I set this up? How do I pay for this? So lower class felt guilt are a lot more around the scarcity trauma. So they were afraid of not having enough resources to be able to afford things, or will they have enough for anything? And the upper class guilt was moral discomfort, because they're just less preoccupied with financial collapse because they've not seen it or been around it. And of course, this is a very big generalization. There's definitely upper class people who fear money and fear scarcity. And there's definitely lower class people who don't think about how they spend. So this isn't to be taken for everything that it's worth. It's also just noticing these patterns within humans. So I don't want anyone to be like, well, I'm lower class and I don't think about these things. Well, it's not about everyone, but it is about your partner and how you talk to your partner, and especially about money. It's such a big thing. The next finding was about tension with parents. I think this is so interesting. So upper class partners were only really nervous about making a good impression, not really about a class mismatch, whereas the lower class partners reported a lot more anxiety around like policing how they talk, or policing diction is what it says, and anxiety over how they present themselves and over etiquette, because I do think there is a certain etiquette when you carry yourselves around people with a lot of money. Whether it's inerrant or not, it's there. And you don't want to present awful, because people with money could change your life. But it's also, there's like a less of a restriction around people who are even taking money out of it, just influential. But money provides influence and power. If I was to further this research study, I would probably take into consideration the power difference and the power dynamic. So for future research projects, she did socioeconomic class differences in lower class partners and upper class partners. And I think we could take it one step further and maybe talk about how power involves, and is money directly correlated to power, or is there something maybe else that's like triggering what fuels these anxieties for the lower class partner specifically. But I think that would be a really cool, interesting way to further this research study. If Emma Gerden ever wants to further it, I'm there with you, girl. Let's do it. And let's talk about power. The last finding of the study that I wanted to go over is that there was future planning differences, which I already kind of talked about, which Benedict and Sophie talking about planning their life, especially in a social society where you're seen to be accepted and everyone needs to be rich in order to be a part of society. But also at the end of the scene, I will say the ending episode is a little bit weird, because they have to end all the plot lines, and they kind of just decide that Sophie's gonna be a gentlewoman. I don't know. I thought it could have been like, let's involve the maids. Let's romance with maids and romance with butlers or whatever the fuck. Like, let's just have it. We can all be together. I don't know. I was hoping that was the direction Bridgerton would go, and instead they kind of just made Sophie a part of society, which is great. But my favorite scene of the whole season was, well, other than the Benedict coming out scene, I loved the wedding. I loved that her like best friend walked her down the aisle. Oh my gosh. And all the maids and all the staff were on one side of the wedding, and all the gentle people and like the Bridgertons were on the other side. Oh my gosh. It was so cute. And Sophie looked beautiful. Yerenha, you are beautiful. Oh my gosh. Benedict is very super, super cute as well. It was such a good scene. I love that scene. Okay. So, some things that we can all take away from this is that sometimes class is invisible until it isn't. So, just like in Bridgerton, when Sophie is silver-gowned woman, Benedict sees her as an equal, and he doesn't pay any attention to class at all. But when Sophie is revealed to be a maid, then class finally comes into question. But the class difference has been there all along. And maybe that's also the same in university, or when you meet someone. A lot of times the first attraction, sometimes it's different, of course. Sometimes people are attracted to rich people specifically, but a lot of times when the attraction, or when you first meet someone, it's not, I don't know if class is the first thing you jump to unless they're really boasting about it or really dressed well or whatever. But class is not really a part of the conversation when you're just talking with someone. And then when you get a little bit deeper, then all of a sudden it's there and it's really prominent. Another takeaway from this is that the psychological burden unfortunately falls disproportionately on the lower class partner. As we've been talking about through this whole episode, there's a lot of different anxieties that come when you date someone in a higher class than you, economic class. I think you're thinking about a lot more, and there's just different anxieties that pop up that maybe you didn't even know you had. And if I was dating someone in my similar wealth class, I wouldn't be thinking about as if I was dating someone super rich. And just like we see in Bridgerton, Sophie is unfortunately worried the whole time, and Benedict has to keep proving to her that it's like, I love you despite this. And she's like, do you? But I'm glad they worked it out. And so can we. The money mindset, security versus scarcity, maybe thinking about how you view money and how that affects your partner or when you enter a relationship. Or if you're just thinking about money in general, do you view it as something secure? Have you always had that security of money? Or do you view it as something scarce? Like, it's not always going to be there. I have to do my work to get it right now. Just thinking about how you view money, and then how future planning magnifies tension. So when class tension intensifies, when couples move in together, when couples get engaged or married, that amplifies the differences, and prenups are a thing, So future planning magnifies class tension, and it's something to be wary about when you're in relationships or even when you're in friendships, honestly. I think about that Friends episode when it's like 3 of them are broke and 3 of them are having a lot, or in their bag, as the kids say. And when you're going out to dinner with friends, it's important to think about not everyone's in the same financial situation. And what makes this romance compelling? What makes cross-class romance situations? There's so many that we see, even like The Notebook. It's like a cross-class romance. What makes this so compelling? And I think though there is obstacles, the work is the reward as well. You're working on yourself. You want to have empathy for the other person, for where they're at. And it's kind of a cool thing to get to know someone from a completely different background. And maybe that's why it's so compelling, is because you're really digging deep inside yourself and why you think this way and where you've come from and how that affects where they come from or how that affects the person that you're with. So I think even though it's hard, cross-class romance is worth it. And it can be worth it if you're willing to put in the work towards fixing the anxiety, or not fixing the anxiety, but working through the anxieties together and working through your differences. It's 2 souls becoming one. Really cool. But anyway, I wanted to say thank you to Emma Gerden. This thesis is awesome. Please keep writing. I am definitely tuned into your work. And watch Bridgerton on Netflix. It is great. Cannot recommend it enough. But anyway, if this is your first time following, I am at the Carpenter Critique on all social media platforms except X. I'm the Carpenter Critic. And on YouTube, I'm the Carpenter Critique as well. I drop episodes once a week, and I have little shorts I drop on all the social medias every day. So you have that to look forward to. Next week, we'll be going over Traders, and then more exciting episodes to come. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am so appreciative and grateful for those who are listening. And I will see you next week. Bye!